Environment with Bill Geiger of Geiger Wealth.
Only the biggest stories, only the biggest guests, and only the biggest opinions. This is AM 560, The Answer.
Good morning, Dan and Amy. Jussie Smollett, his story seems to be deteriorating rather than being strengthened after his very soft Good Morning America interview with Robin Roberts yesterday. ABC, CBS reporting here locally that their multiple sources suggest that the attack on Smollett was staged and that it was staged because he was being written out of the show. Now, to be fair, the Empire denies that he was being written out of the show, number one. And then number two, Chicago police say they're still treating him as a victim. They have two persons of interest, the two silhouettes that we've seen in the video, that have been detained for questioning, their apartment searched.
Yeah, they live in Lakeview, and the store where they bought the clothing line, the Ace Hardware there in Wrigleyville, police have been to that shop. Also, these two brothers, one worked as an extra on Empire, and they're both from Nigeria. So within hours after the purported attack, Dan, they go to O'Hare, jump on a plane for Nigeria. They come back Wednesday. They're immediately taken in for questioning. They've been there almost for 48 hours, so they have to charge them or release them by 5:45 p.m. tonight. Now,
Smollett suggests that the two people on the video were the people that attacked him, and the two people on the video are these Nigerian brothers who were tracked down by police, apparently, by looking at rideshare receipts.
Yep, they took rideshare receipts from that area. They checked out, and it led them to their apartment in Wrigleyville.
And let me just say, and I've tweeted it out, Jussie Smollett's story that one of these two punched him, and then he punched that guy back, and then the other guy kicked him, and then for some unknown reason, they decided to scurry away.
Oh, but they poured bleach on him first and said, this is MAGA country.
If you see these two,
they're huge.
Let me just say something. If one of them, either one of them, had punched Jussie Smollett, we would be memorializing Jussie Smollett as an actor cut down in the prime of his career. That's what would have actually happened.
They're both received scholarships for football, okay? They're big dudes.
For more on this and a couple other topics, including the Gosnell movie, which both Amy and I have finally gotten around to seeing, we're pleased to be joined again by Andrew Klavan, podcaster, Another Kingdom is his podcast. It's in season 2. A screenwriter, Hollywood screenwriter, a number of films, including, of course, the Gosnell movie. Andrew, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
It's always a pleasure. Thanks.
So what about Jussie Smollett? I don't know if you had the time to get out and march with all the Hollywood celebrities in solidarity with him a couple weekends ago, but it doesn't look like that march is going to wear well.
Yeah, it's funny. First of all, the first thing that really strikes me about the story is how professional the Chicago PD has been. They sound like they're doing a very careful, very professional job, and I think that's to their credit. When this story broke, I have to tell you, the first season of Empire is one of the very, very few shows I've ever binged. I found it to be incredibly gripping and entertaining. I couldn't stop. I almost never watch more than an hour of TV on any given day. I think I watched 5 episodes in a row. I found it so addictive. And Smollett was one of the high points of the show, an amazingly talented, very appealing guy with a good storyline about a gay guy with a black homophobic father. I mean, just very, very powerful TV stuff. So I was a big fan, and the minute I heard the story, I said, this isn't tracking for me. And I didn't want to disbelieve him. I don't want to disbelieve him now, But it does sound that this is unraveling. And if I, who does a podcast, if a podcaster had enough wit to doubt the story, why didn't anybody in the press ask questions?
Well, they did. I mean, locally, on a national level, like all your Access Hollywood and all those guys.
No,
they were treating him as a victim.
Locally, they were on his side from the beginning. They didn't question it locally. This was Covington all over again.
And the national press was just embarrassing. I mean, it was just so credulous and so, again, all I ask is that just a little bit of doubt. It's like when you read a quote by George Washington that confirms all your political beliefs. I immediately check it out. I immediately assume that it's a fake quote because George Washington wasn't, a 21st century right-winger. He was who he was,
Right.
And so when I hear a story like this, and it just fits so easily into the left-wing narrative of what America is like, and includes guys walking around what is it? It's like 20 below out there.
It was minus 23-degree wind chill that night.
Yeah, wandering around looking to start trouble. It just didn't scan from the very start, and now it does seem like it's unraveling. Some of it is suspicious. Look, I'm perfectly willing to withhold judgment, but it's hard to withhold judgment on the press. I mean, it just seems to me that a press that just reports every story like this is just revealing about themselves what they think about America. I'm a fiction writer all my life, and what I always say is fiction is a method of revealing the truth, but fantasy only reveals the truth about the person telling the story. And what this reveals about our press and maybe about Jussie Smollett is their sense of this country as a dangerous, hateful place. I mean, the story could have happened because, of course, there are dangerous, hateful people everywhere. But this country is not the kind of place where people go around getting attacked like this. It doesn't. When it happens, it makes news because it's so rare. It is so rare. And I mean, this is a country that has dealt with its racist past, has really experienced shame and a turning of the heart. And yet the left just cannot accept it. They really do believe, Michelle Obama really believed that Barack Obama at any minute was going to get killed if he pumped gas at a gas station. She really believed that. This is the story they tell themselves, and they ought to open their eyes and talk to some actual Americans and find out how people feel, because this is one of the most generous, open countries on earth, and it is, and I lived overseas for 7 years, it is the least racist country on the planet. Mm-hmm. And so what bothers me about this is the accepting of the story without questioning it, and the using of the story as if it were representative of America, of the American atmosphere.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, the other thing, though, is on Smollett, the cynicism. What did he know? Assuming that this is embellished at the least or made up completely at the worst, what did he know? He knew that the narrative of the victim hero will be taken without hesitation by the press corps.
That's right. That's right. And what a sad thing it is. Here's this guy who's at the top. He's one of the top people. He's working in Hollywood. He's got a great hit show. What a terrible, sad thing to feel that he has to increase his visibility by treating himself as a victim. I mean, so many people of all different colors who are successful in athletics or in show business go out and serve charities and sit with sick children and front for good causes. He is going to establish his bona fides by getting himself attacked. I mean, what a sad way to use your celebrity. I mean, what a pitiful thing, really, to do if that's what it turns out to be. I mean, the whole idea, and so many of these hate crimes are faked today, on college campuses. So many are revealed to be fake. What a terrible thing it says about the mindset of people, that they feel that this somehow elevates them to be a victim. I mean, I think being a hero elevates you. I think being a good person elevates you. I think being a victim is just a sad thing that happens to some people, and it's awful, but it's not something I'd audition for.
I wanted to switch gears. Both Amy and I have had a chance now to see the Gosnell movie. We've talked about it before with you, but we hadn't seen it when we did. And boy, was that well done. It exceeded my expectations. And there were some, and I would just want to talk about a couple of choices you made. I don't want to do too much in terms of spoiler alert here, but you and everybody associated with it. And the acting.
The acting was amazing.
The guy who played Earl Billings, his name, I think, who played Gosnell,
so
was
good.
Oh man,
he was amazing. Yeah. Like, he had his mannerisms down, and he nailed his character.
He was. I mean, it's tough to play a sociopath that well, and boy, he did. But the choice to not disclose graphic images, and the way that it was presented during the trial of Gosnell, I thought was probably more powerful than if you had presented the graphic pictures. But that, and then, so that was one moment, and the other moment for me was Janine Turner on the witness stand as the responsible operator of an abortion clinic, to distinguish herself from the irresponsible in Gosnell, and the presentation of her essentially through cross-examination as no different than Gosnell. I thought those were like two real inflection points in the film.
Well, thanks. I mean, the first one was something that everybody agreed on from the very beginning. You know, I always remind people that the arts are something people do in their spare time. Nobody wants to go out to a movie and watch, you know, babies being ripped to shreds. We wanted to talk about the personal drama. We wanted to talk about the human drama, and everyone was on board with that from the very beginning. That scene that you're talking about, I wish I could say, oh, I made that brilliant scene up, but I took it right out of the transcripts. Yeah. I mean, obviously I had to edit it for space and, you know, condense it into into screenplay form. But that actually happened in the trial, as so much of the stuff that happens, none of this is made up. So much of it comes right out of the transcripts. And it is an amazing moment, because one of the things that I kept finding, I think we all kept finding, is people didn't know. You know, they didn't know what people would say. Oh, well, abortion should be legal to 20 weeks, and you start to count that on your fingers, and you think, wait a minute, that's 5 months. Does anybody think that a 5-month-old baby, a 5-month-old baby in the womb is not an actual baby? I mean, that's insane. You know, so much about abortion, which people don't think about, because people don't pay that much attention, is shocking when you actually confront it. And I think that that's one of the things about the movie, is it's not a story of bloodshed the way the movie is told. It's a story of moral atrocity more than physical atrocity. You know, it's what people are accepting as normal in this country right this minute. That is really something I think needs to be confronted. You know, I think we're in a society right now with a couple of ideas that are actually psychopathic, and I think good people, really good people, do very bad things when the intellectual atmosphere of a country is sick. And you know, I mean, this is the kind of thing where you find in Nazi Germany, you'll find perfectly decent people doing terrible things. In the slave-holding South, you found perfectly decent people doing things that we now look back and think, how could they have done it? And I really feel the country is in this state right now where if the good people would just confront what this really is, look at the science, look at the pictures, look at the things we now know, I think that they would just rise up in horror and say, oh my God, what have we done, you know? Right. And so I don't think this is ever a matter of blaming individuals. It's a matter of looking at the society and saying, hey, you know, we went down a wrong road. When you go down a wrong road, the way forward is back. And that's just something that I think this country really needs to be talking about and thinking about, and nobody should be intimidated into silence over it.
Well, the timing of this couldn't be better, too, for the discussion. I mean, with New York and Virginia and Rhode Island and Illinois. Yep. I mean, so to have this policy discussion, say, is this the kind of civilization we want to have? I think, you know, your movie sets that discussion up perfectly.
Well, I'm happy to hear that. I mean, obviously, that's, you know, they always say God's timing is the best timing, and that's something none of us could have planned, but I guess it's kind of written into the idea. You know, it's amazing. I mean, this is one of the things that I talk about more than anything. It's amazing how bad ideas, false ideas, ideas that don't accurately describe reality, lead all of us, an entire society, into very, very dark places. And that's why it's important for people not to be silenced, and it's important for people not to be silent. You know, we all have to say, let me examine that idea for a minute. I'm not going to attack you, but let me look at your ideas here and see if they make sense, see if they actually describe reality. And I think this is one of the big mistakes that this country has made. And I think, you know, the way people look back and they blame, you know, guys like George Washington and Thomas Jefferson for holding slaves without really understanding what it's like to live in that kind of society. I think a lot of people are going to look back at us and feel the same way.
And was Gosnell that monster of a doctor? Was he really that way? I mean, I'll never forget the scene where he had blood on his lab coat, and then he sits down and has takeout Chinese food. And then he liked his animals more than innocent babies that he killed.
Those those depictions were taken directly from my conversations with the detective, the guy who's played by Dean Cain in the movie, and like a lot of police detectives, he's a great guy, and he just looks at the world and thinks, what the hell is going on here? And his description, especially of going in to search this guy's house, where everywhere he lived was just like an absolute mess. You know, cats all over the place, leaving dirt everywhere, and when they came in to search this place, looking for evidence of very terrible crimes. Gosnell sat down and played the piano while they were searching, which is in the movie. And, he was telling me these stories with a look on his face like, I have seen things that said to me, like, I have seen things that you would not believe. And that personality was really
chilling.
It was taken directly from the things that the guys were telling me.
Did you ever find out the mother of baby boy A?
Did I ever find out who it was?
Yeah.
I don't believe I did. It's a while since I wrote it, but I don't believe I was trying to do that.
Well, one other thing I didn't know from the story, and I read about it at the time when the press actually started covering it. The blogger. Was that real? That blogger played such an instrumental role in getting national media to pay attention to the case?
No, that is actually a condensed character.
Okay.
What really happened? I mean, the press ignored the case. It ignored the case, and finally, it was her name just slipped out of my head. But she was a journalist a columnist for USA Today, very liberal columnist. Finally said, "Hey, you're ignoring this case because it's about abortion," and then people started to show up. And so she became the blogger character, and it kind of she wouldn't let us use her name, and so we condensed a few characters into the blogger character.
Just curious. All right, well, Gosnell, it's available on Amazon right now, so you can buy it or rent it, and you should do that. He is Andrew Klavan. You should also listen to his podcast, Another Kingdom. It's in season 2. Screenwriter for the Gosnell movie and many other films of yore, including true crime. Andrew, thanks so much for joining us. As always, appreciate it.
It's a pleasure. Thanks.
And he joined us on